Hi beauties, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am going to be talking about my first year studying law at uni. I'm just going to be spilling the tea on the degree basically, but as always before I get into the video itself, quick shout out to those of you talking about my channel for the first time. I hope you like what you see, and if you do, don't forget to like, comment and hit the subscribe button down below. I never know where to look when I'm using this camera. So I've written some stuff down on my phone because I imagine this is going to be quite a lengthy video, so I apologise for that in advance, but I just want this video to be as informative as possible. I just want to tell you guys stuff in as much detail as possible, and obviously as much as I can remember, which is very important because I can't remember too much. Obviously I finished my first year in May, it's currently September. But before I get into my whole first year experience and whatnot, I just want to give you guys some background information obviously relevant to me leading up to studying law and whatnot. So first of all, I go to the University of Leicester. I study law at the University of Leicester, and it is the 3-year LLB course, so that's just a normal standard law course. I went to a sixth form, not college, actually went to a sixth form college, not a college. So I did A-levels, but that's not to say that you can't do BTEC and get into uni, but I did A-levels. In my first year I studied psychology, sociology, English literature and law. In my second year I dropped law and continued with the remaining subjects. To get into my uni I needed an AAB. I believe the requirements at the time were AAB to AAA. I unfortunately got an ABB, but I still got in. Like I said, I finished my first year in May and I got a 2-1. That was actually 7% off a first, which seems good, but when you get familiar with the uni markings you actually understand that that's quite a low 2-1. Sigh. But yeah, that's all the background info that I think is irrelevant that you might be wondering about as I continue this video. So let's start off with the modules. So there are 5 modules that you study in first year. 3 of them are core modules, 2 of them are mini modules. The 3 core modules are contract law, tort law, and constitutional and administrative law. The mini modules that we did were analysing the English legal system and law, justice and society. Now obviously I can only tell things from my point of view, from the point of view from my uni. I doubt that it would like differ across unis, but I believe the core modules that you study in first and like second year would be the same, but obviously the mini modules would be different, and I'm sure of that because I know for a fact that analysing the English legal system is getting scrapped because that module was absolute rubbish. I remember the head of the law department for the uni came in to kind of get feedback about whether or not we liked that module, and literally everyone in the lecture hall laughed in his face because it was honestly so silly. I think it was like the first year they did it, so they're not doing it again because it actually was rubbish. Very horrible module. Anyway, I digress. So each of the core modules are worth 25% each, so 25, that makes up 75%. The remaining 25% is of course like the mini modules, so they're worth like 12.5% each basically. I have 3 semesters at uni: first semester, second semester, third semester. Third semester is I believe exam season. The first semester is exam season, but I think there's a little bit of a teaching period there. So the 3 core modules are taught across all 3 semesters, assuming that the first semester there's a little bit of teaching, can't really remember. And then the 2 mini modules are only taught for 1 semester each, so you have one the first semester and one the second semester kind of. So of course you need books for the course. I actually bought the books. These are the books here. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 books, and they cost me, guys, they cost me over £200. Obviously I paid that out of my student finance, so that was okay, but imagine if I didn't have to pay that, I would have been sitting on a nice bit of money still. So the books are actually available in the library, but I left it quite late, which is why I just had to buy them. But I was kind of glad that I bought them because I think like I don't really know how the library works up till this day, but it's like if you take out the book and then someone requests it, you have to return it, and that seems quite annoying. Obviously I don't know, obviously I've never really experienced it, but that seems quite annoying. I don't want to be studying and now someone's requesting the book and I have to return it. So having it myself is really good, and also because I can write inside of it, I can annotate it as I'm revising and whatnot, so that's really useful. But obviously you do have to take into consideration that it is over £200, but luckily I was able to cover that with my student finance. But the price itself wouldn't have been as much if I had known that I didn't need every single book. Honestly, I probably only needed about 4 of these books out of the 8, or even 3. So the module that I was talking about, that was PANTS, Analysing the English Legal System, I didn't need that at all. In as much as we had the book, what we were learning was not really in here. What we were assessed on for this module was not in here, like literally not in here at all. So this huge book a waste. And a lot of the stuff that we covered in the Analysing the English Legal System lectures I'd actually done in A levels, and you probably think that, oh, it's not the same, but it actually was the same. It was the same. And the thing is, the way the lecturer was, he wasn't that honest. Unfortunately, he was not a very good lecturer. Like, he wasn't a very good lecturer at all. Like, obviously he was nice and everyone liked him, but he wasn't a very good lecturer at all. So the way he was teaching it was not making any sense. So bare people were confused, but I, having already studied it at A levels, was just sitting back, you know. But yeah, so I did not need that book. The only books I really needed was my book for torts, contract law, and constitutional. The other books are books that have the cases. Now, it's good obviously to have the cases, but you can find them online, and there's also this like library feature where you can like read up on the entire case. But it's good to have the book, but it's something that you can find online. But obviously, depending on your budget, you might consider just not buying them. But obviously, the problem with that is the uni give you the reading list, the book list, and you just kind of buy everything and look for everything. But what they won't tell you is that you don't necessarily need these books, and obviously they're not going to tell you that because they're trying to make peace, they're trying to make money. So it's not something they're gonna, tell you. But obviously, if you don't have the money to buy the books, or you miss out on getting it on the library, you can consider getting it secondhand. But because obviously the course itself is law, the law is always changing, so you don't want to have a 2017-2016 edition when we're in the year 2018, especially because obviously the law is always, it's ever changing, it's always getting updated. And for certain modules as well, constitutional and administrative law or public law, for example, has a lot of 2017-18 cases, a lot of recent cases, especially because it's to do with like Brexit and all of that. So obviously it's really very important to have a recent edition for that particular module. But yeah, that is it for the books. Tuesday I did not read too much of them. I did read them, but I didn't read all of them. Obviously there will be some people that read front to back. I didn't do that because I didn't. But obviously it's good to try and read as much of it as possible. I did read quite a fair bit, but I didn't read as much of it as probably needed to. So let's talk about lectures. I would say I had a maximum of 3 lectures in a day. Lectures are for 1 hour. I know people say, oh Lord, it's so busy in it, but it's not busy in terms of the amount of lectures you have. It's busy in the amount of work you have to complete, because the lectures are pretty calm. More time, I would only have like a 1 hour lecture a day, so you have the rest of the day free to, obviously, I say to do whatever you want, but really to like study or whatever. So the most lectures I would have a day is 3, and they're for 1 hour each. So that's really, like, you think that's really nice compared to like secondary school where you're doing 9 to like 3. So lectures, there aren't too many, but it is Monday to Friday. You may often have a day off if like a lecture gets cancelled or something like that, or if you choose to take a day off. But lectures are Monday to Friday, but they aren't hefty. You will have like maximum 3 lectures a day, but I would say that's like once a week. It's not very often. Sometimes you'll have 2-hour lectures, which are like back-to-back lectures. So you might have contracts like 2 blocks in a row, so 2 hours of contract, or you might have contract then talk. But because the lectures are in the same room, you won't have to like move around like if you was at like sixth form or like secondary school or something. So obviously law is a really popular course, so there are a lot of people in the lectures. Obviously I don't know, this would obviously depend on your uni, because obviously there are some smaller unis like DMU, obviously, which is a uni in Leicester, is a smaller uni. Law is a very popular course. The capacity of the lecture hall that we are in is like 400 people. Obviously not everyone is going to be in that lecture hall. Obviously not everyone is going to sit next to each other like that, because that's weird. But it's a lot of people, and there's also an overflow lecture hall, which isn't too big, but you can imagine that it's a lot of people on the course. So yeah, very popular. You don't want to be late because it's always really awkward walking in. But the lectures are alright. They're usually easy to follow. Obviously it depends on whether or not you have a good lecturer. Obviously not every lecturer is very good. Like I said about that Analysing English, he was a lovely guy, everyone liked him, but his teaching just was not like great, And that's obviously really important at uni, because it's not I mean, obviously it's something that you can teach yourself, but it's something that you've never done. Well, might be something that you've never done before, so obviously you want to actually get taught it kind of thing. You don't want someone just reading it at you, you want to learn it basically. So you get handouts for each module, paper handouts, which is really similar to A-level law, which is why I like doing law prior to coming to uni, because it's a very similar structure in terms of the lectures and the handouts, as well as the exams, which I'll get onto later. So you're given handouts for each module. Handout is basically just like a paper booklet with like obviously details about the lectures. Some people do it per topic, some people do it per lecture. Because of the handouts, it's not always necessary to take notes, and I don't want to say, oh, don't take notes, like I'm saying slack or something, but I'm not saying that. Just that some lecturers literally read from the handout, so there's no need to start taking extra notes, unless of course they are saying something extra. Whereas some courses, some modules, some lectures, it's absolutely necessary to take notes. For example, taught, we were given a handout, but it would literally just have like a heading. It would literally just be a heading. Unfortunately, I don't have my handouts. I actually threw them away because I actually condensed all my notes into books, so I didn't need the handouts. But for taught, the way she did the handout was literally a heading, and then she would talk and you would just have to follow. Some lectures do go very fast, so it's quite necessary to catch up in free time, because they're also PowerPoints as well. They might skip on the PowerPoint before you can write everything down. So obviously go to your lecturers and see whether or not it's necessary to, I don't want to say necessary, but pay attention to whether or not you need to take notes basically, because at the end, like when it comes to exam season, those notes are going to be so necessary. I didn't always go to all of my lectures, and I didn't always take all my notes, and during exam period I definitely struggle because of that. So don't be like me, sis, don't struggle. And again, obviously if you miss a lecture, you're going to miss out on a shitload of notes. So if you do miss a lecture, obviously do try and catch up. That is one thing I most certainly did not do. So like going into my second year, I've got a lot of things that I want to like rectify, a lot of things that I want to, you know, do better in. So obviously if you know what uni is like, you have lectures and then you have tutorials or seminars. Some people actually don't know what a seminar is. We didn't have seminars, we had tutorials, but like other courses did seminars. We might have seminars this year, I don't know, because they are not releasing our timetable for some reason. But we had tutorials. So a tutorial is basically where a group of 6 of you, obviously you don't choose the group, you're just randomly assigned to a group. So 6 or 7 of you are in a group, and you're in that group for the entire academic year. And what happens in a tutorial is you basically are given work, not in the tutorial, but obviously like from the lecture you are given work, and you go away and do the work. This is basically your homework. You go away, you do the work, and then you come back and you do feedback within the group. So I don't really talk, well, like in school settings I don't talk much. I'm kind of just there. If I have to answer a question I will, but I'm not one of those people that are going to put up their hand and do that. No, that's not me. But at uni, in tutorials, it's quite important to speak up, because your tutor or whatever might be someone that's giving you a recommendation for like a law firm or I don't know, work experience or something, so you don't want it to be like you don't participate at all. So even though that's not me in the slightest, I did go out of my way to make sure that I spoke up. For example, when I didn't do the work, if there were like 6 questions, which doesn't seem like a lot, but they're like hefty questions, so don't even get it twisted. If I only did like the first 2 questions, I would make sure that for those first 2 questions I was extremely vocal, so that it didn't seem like I came there for no reason, so it didn't seem like I didn't do the work, so it didn't seem like I didn't understand. I'll just be really vocal. And then for the rest of the questions, I'm just gonna be yeah, oh yeah, that's making sense, you know. I'll just be, you know, doing it anyhow, as if say I did the work, which I didn't. But yeah, tutorials are really, really important. So you have a tutorial for each module. So for each tutorial module you'll have a different tutor, and sometimes it will be your lecturer, sometimes it won't be. I didn't have my lecturer for any of my tutorials, but obviously some people did, which for them it was like tougher, because that's the actual lecture. You have to like actually like show that you're paying attention in that lecture, otherwise that's a bit awkward. Tutorials are really, really important, because a lot of the time the exams are based on not the tutorial work, but the kind of questions you get are the kind of questions you might see in the exam. So it's really important to attend tutorials. I did not attend, my group did not, we slacked. We did not attend tutorials very much. We had a group chat, and sometimes there'll be like 1 or 2 people there, and they'll be in the group chat like, guys, like where are you, like oh my god. But because I lived really close to uni, sometimes I would see the message and I would just force myself to go. But a lot of the time the reason I didn't go is because I hadn't done the work, which doesn't seem good, but if you go to a tutorial and you haven't done the work, you're literally there for no reason. One time I went to a tutorial and I mistakenly looked at the tutorial for the week ahead, and for that tutorial there was no prep required, so everyone was asking me questions and I was like, shit, like I've done the wrong thingy, and the tutor like started shouting at me. I was like, oh my god. She was like, why are you here then? Everyone was like, ooh. And I was like, well, like, I didn't leave because that would have been orcs, but obviously do try and, you don't want to turn up when you haven't done the work, but obviously at the same time do the work. Another thing that's really important when you're studying law is referencing. Obviously law is a completely essay based course, so it's very important to learn how to reference. A lot of people were familiar with referencing from A-levels. I was not. I kind of just jumped straight into it, and I think I missed the lecture on referencing, and me being me, I didn't catch up. I'm coming across as very unserious. I am, but not this year. I'm going to be a changed woman. But referencing is really important. You don't want to reference badly and obviously end up plagiarising and then losing points or having your whole essay scrapped. You don't want to write a 3,000 word essay and it gets scrapped because you've plagiarised. So obviously do learn to plagiarise. Me going into my second year, I'm definitely going to learn how to do it better, because more time I just wing it. And the annoying thing is like, you'll get your feedback for the essay and they'll be like, this is wrong, but they won't even tell you like how to do it. But obviously, you know, you have to be independent and figure it out yourself, I guess. But yeah, learning to reference is really important. I wouldn't say that's something you have to do prior to coming to uni. You can do it when you start your first year, but I wouldn't say it's something that, oh, when you're someone you should be learning to reference anyhow, because it's not too hard, but it's still something that you need to understand. Now I'm going to talk about assessment, exams and whatnot. So we would be assessed per module every now and then, so you would have like an essay every now and then to hand in, but it's assessed, but it's not assessed. It doesn't count towards anything, but obviously it's still important to do it, to see how you're doing, to see your progress and whatnot. So all assessment is essay based. There's obviously a lot of writing in law. The maximum essay would be 3,000 words. Obviously that's for first year. I don't know if in second year and whatnot it increases. Also I know dissertations are like 10,000 words. But the maximum essay we would get is 3,000 words, which seems like a lot, but it's not once you start writing. And then the minimum essay would be 1,000 words. Now, sis, a 1,000 word essay is so hard. You think it will be so much easier because it's not as many words, but the fact that there aren't as many words like means you can't put in as much as you want to. You can't go into as much detail as you want to. So you find yourself kind of locking off your sentences and locking off your points early and not really getting into it, which really obviously like, it just waters down your essay. Like I remember there was one for Law, Justice and Society, there was one essay and the lecturer, like for everyone's feedback, she was like, you didn't mention this, you didn't mention that, you didn't do enough. Sis, we had 1,000 words, what the hell are you on about? Like we had 1,000 words, not here doing anyhow. Like she was quite a vicious marker. 1,000 word essays are quite hard. Like I'm sure there's a trick to being able to do them properly, but I definitely struggled with them. So, like I said earlier, the mini modules are taught for one semester, so at the end of the semester you will be assessed. So analysing the English legal system was taught for the first semester. We were given our assessment over the Christmas period and then obviously getting the results back in like January. That assessment, I don't even want to talk about it because I'll get mad, because I got a 2-2. But when I go into detail, yeah. Like I said earlier, everything that was in this hefty book, none of it helped me with my assessment. None of it was relevant at all. In fact, as we were doing the assessment, there was so much contract law coming up and I'm like, what the hell? And it's cool that I was doing it and I'm identifying all these aspects of contract law, but the lecturer was like, yeah, you don't have to talk about any of that. I was like, alright then. Why did I get my feedback and they marked me down for not talking about the contract law? The contract law that the lecturer said you don't need to talk about. Am I a dickhead? Anyway, what's done is done. Stupid module, a very silly module. But Law, Justice and Society was that was just an essay, 3,000 words I believe. I got a 2-1 in that. I was hoping to get a first. I was close, but not close enough. I was hoping to get a first just to kind of bump up my obviously my overall grade in case I didn't do too well in my exams. But I actually did okay in my exams, to be honest. Now I'm going to explain what a legal exam or what a law exam is like at uni. It is very similar to A-level law. In fact, it's basically the same, kind of. So if you do A-level law, you would already kind of know how to approach it. So what it is you get For each exam you get part A and part B. Part A will be first semester stuff, part B will be second semester stuff, and more time you will either pick 2 questions from part A and 2 questions from part B, or you will do 1 question from part A and 2 questions from part B. So if you do 4 questions altogether, that's 25% each, so 25 marks per question, so obviously it's out of 100, and if you do 3 questions per exam, that is 33% each, 33 marks. So obviously you're thinking, oh, only 4 questions, only 3 questions. No, don't get it twisted, sis. And a question, when you're studying law, a question is an essay, like an entire essay. So how long were exams? Exams are like 3 hours. Yeah, exams are like 3 hours or 3 hour plus. So you have 3 hours to either write 4 essays or 3 essays, and you do want to write a lot. Obviously don't write with substance, you know, you want to write stuff that's making sense, but you do have to write a lot. So obviously you do have to write a lot because a question is basically an essay, so you have to answer it fully. You have to, like, sis, when I say you have to do an essay, you have to do an essay. You're talking like maybe 4 or 5 slides per question. So when you finish writing, that's going to be a lot of slides basically. So very, very important to manage your time. Do not go over, because you're just going to hurt yourself when you're going into the next question and you're running out of time. It's not good to do that. So if it's 3 hours, assign yourself 1 hour per question, but I think it's like 3 hours and 15 minutes because you have reading time. I'll get into what you need the reading time for. Obviously you need to read questions, but it depends on the type of question. So there are 2 types of questions when you do a law exam. There's either a problem question or an essay question. So a problem question will give you a scenario, and in each scenario there maybe be like 4 characters: Billy, Bob, Jane, Bethany, or whatever. So something will happen to Billy, something will happen to Bob, something will happen to Jane, something will happen to Bethany, and then at the end of the question, at the problem question, it will say advise Billy, advise Bob, advise Jane, advise Bethany, excuse me, and you'll do so. And then an essay question will just be a standard question. For example, I literally can't remember anything I've learned because I legit cannot come up with an essay question. But yeah, an essay. Wow. I had to get out a book. One of my this entire book is notes. Like, do you know how long it took me to fill up this book? Forever. For example, an essay question might be, what is the importance of constitutional conventions, or discuss the impact of the European Union law on parliamentary sovereignty. So that's constitutional and administrative law. So those are the 2 types of questions: problem questions and essay questions. I personally prefer essay questions, but obviously I find that majority of people prefer problem questions because you're given that paragraph in the beginning that you have to read. You're given a scenario. As you're reading it, you're able to identify the different problems obviously within the question, which is kind of why it's easier, because you're kind of given that prompt when you're answering the question. Whereas for an essay question, if you are going to do an essay question, you have to know exactly what you're writing, because it is an entire essay. You can't just come and faff about and write a paragraph. You have to write like 4 or 5 slides, so you have to know what you are writing. But that is the good thing about law exams, is that you can basically plan the essay before. And I know a lot of the time people discourage doing things like that, but because of the way law exams are set up, it is possible to do that. Because you will more or less know what questions are going to be on the exams. They don't switch up the questions like that. And when I was looking at past papers, I noticed that they usually do the same kind of trend of questions, or the exact same question per year, which is somewhat similar to A-levels but not completely similar. For A-levels, it's kind of like 50-50 that a question will come up. I remember my first year, so my first year of A-level law, the first law exam, I went into that exam, I was telling my friends, sis, I'm getting that A, I'm getting an A, I got a C. What? It's lucky that I got a C, because I thought I got a D, but I got a C because the way I revised, there were like 4 or 5 topics. I revised about 3, and only like 1.5 of them came up, which was very, very unusual, and so obviously I got into the exam and I literally couldn't actually answer the questions. I could only answer like 1.5 of the questions, so I obviously like did not do well at all. So obviously in A levels it's not always a good idea to like pick and choose what you revise, but for law you absolutely can. So this is an examinable checklist. You can't really see it, but as you can see there are a lot of things there that I'm like required to know. So that takes up like 2 pages. Obviously each bullet point will kind of condense into one topic, but my point is that you can pick and choose out of these what you want to answer. It's not that you have to kind of burden yourself learning everything. Obviously it's good to know everything, but you can pick and choose what you want to like know, which is good because you can then go into detail with what you're learning. And then obviously if you choose to do an essay question, you should be able to answer it to the fullest because you've been able to kind of divert your energy to that particular topic, that particular question, having known what's likely to come up from the exam. Tips I would give for answering an essay question, like I said, just know what you're answering. Don't just do it on a whim. You cannot do an essay question on a whim. You can do a problem question on a whim, because if you have been revising, then you'll be able to read the problem itself and identify different aspects of whatever area of law you're doing. But with an essay question, you have to know what you're answering, because if you don't and you just do it on a whim, just from the back of your mind, you're only going to write like a paragraph, and that is actually not good enough. But if you're doing a problem question, like worst case scenario, you decide to do a problem question because you feel like you haven't revised enough, then that would be a lot better. So if you are doing a problem question, make sure that you read it again. You have a highlighter. It's good to have a highlighter or like a coloured pen or whatever to kind of obviously highlight whatever's coming up in the problem question. What I like to do is I read it and I highlight it, and then I annotate as well the cases that are relevant to each. For like I was saying, each person, there'll be like 4 characters. I'll highlight the cases that are relevant to each person's scenario. At the beginning of each exam you have about 15 minutes reading time, so you can't start writing yet, but you can write on the question paper. So what I do is I obviously read all the questions, pick the 3 or 4 questions that I'm going to do. So for those 3 or 4 questions, I read it, annotate it, highlight it, and then I start writing down the cases that are relevant to each question. Obviously if it's a problem question, you know that you have a lot of cases, you start writing down the cases that are relevant to each person's scenario. That really helps in the long run, especially when you start other questions, maybe you're forgetting. Seeing as you've already written those down in the beginning, that really helps you. So that it's not like they were in your mind at the beginning and they've just flown at the back. So obviously write down as much as you can, remember in the beginning. Yeah. Another very important thing is to brush up on your knowledge of cases. It's very important to remember cases. You cannot do a law exam without including cases, because you need the cases to back up your points. It's kind of like PEE. Your point will be whatever point it is, your evidence will be the case, your explanation will be the explanation of the case, and then linking it back to the point basically. So it's obviously very important to know your cases in detail, not only the name, what happens in them, the judgment, if like a judge dissented in it or whatever. It's important to know all of that. But don't worry if you can't remember the full name of the cases, because some cases are very long. Don't panic if you can't remember the year, just try and at least remember the name, because a lot of the time people come out of exams and they're like, oh, I didn't write the full but that's okay, as long as you've got like the main part of it. So some cases, if I look for an example, like pretty long. So for example, Agricultural Training Board v Aylesbury Mushrooms 1972, that's quite a long name, so you may want to abbreviate ATB v Aylesbury Mushrooms or whatever 1972. And if you don't get the date, don't worry. Obviously it's important, but if you don't get it, it's more important that at least you've got the name. Yeah, so obviously there are ways that people shorten things. For example, Lee v Department for Education and Science 1968 is often abbreviated to Lee v DES, so DES, Department for Education and Science. But yeah, so this video is really long. It's really long. I'm honestly just losing my train of thought as I'm talking, but I hope this video has been helpful. I think this is everything that I planned on talking about, but I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Also, if you have any questions, do drop them in the comment box below or whatever. You know, shoot me a DM if you want to shoot me a DM. Shoot me a DM if you want to shoot me a DM on Instagram, or if you want to Snapchat me at Snapchat. But I hope this was helpful. I know it's gonna be like a long video. I'm seeing like half an hour here on my thingy, so yeah, because I've been talking too long. I'm losing my train of thought here, so I'm losing it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video nonetheless. I hope it was as informative as possible. I did try to kind of include everything that I could remember and everything that I felt was relevant. But if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like, comment, and hit the subscribe button down below, and hopefully I'll see you in a later video. Bye.